grade sixes were tasked with a brief to create a sustainable and innovative town or city. The focus was on identifying real life problems in their communities and then finding solutions to address those problems. They had to select a renewable source of energy and also incorporate that into their model. Firstly, they had to plan their towns and draw up a map and then assign various roles to one another. And ultimately they produced the final product, which was their sustainable town, and they were also assigned to various climates, so each town was located in a different climate area, so they also had to consider those aspects in their design.
In term 1 this year, in grade 5, we started The Last Bear, and it's set on Bear Island in the Arctic Circle. And so we used that as our guide for our theme for the term, and we actually then started looking at who am I, and because of the snowflakes, and the snowflakes are unique, and how am I unique in our journey. And so then they started their journey through the Arctic Circle and explored the polar regions in the Antarctic and the Arctic, and then looked at polar animals and early explorers in both of the polar regions, and looked at modern day explorers. We looked at the indigenous people of Norway and the Scandinavian countries. We looked at the Vikings, so we brought in all our history, and we were very honored to have a guest speaker who's been to the Antarctic. We had another guest speaker who lives up in Sweden and could give us insight into living in those cold regions.
The grade 4's IBL question this term was, how can children help the elderly in our community? So we started off by looking at our community and the history of Pinelands in particular. Then we looked at what it meant to be an elderly person. We went through the aging process, and we looked at how needs and wants of the elderly change over time. The children also prepared orals on diseases and illnesses that pertain to the elderly. And all of this, the purpose of all of this was to grow their empathy and their understanding of what it means to get old. So they answered the final question by preparing some skits where they acted out how they could help the elderly.
Aches and pains. The characters are the nurse, the child, and Granny.
Our big project was to make a model garden that would be easily accessible by the elderly, where they could either sit and relax and read, or they could look at the fish pond, or they could enjoy the flowers and the birds. They had to prepare and design their garden and then build it out of recyclable material, which they had to strengthen using various methods to strengthen materials.